What feeling in you makes an avoidant want to come back? Most people assume avoidants come back when you give them space or when you stop caring. But space alone doesn't create return. Detachment alone doesn't create return. What creates return is a specific emotional signature they recognize in you that signals something their system desperately needs but rarely finds. Here's what makes this tricky. It's not confidence, though confidence helps. It's not indifference, though people confuse the two constantly. It's not even about being mysterious or hard to get. Those tactics might create temporary curiosity, but they don't change the fundamental dynamic that makes an avoidant keep their distance. The real answer sits in a place most people never look. They're too busy analyzing text message timing, or crafting the perfect response, or deciding whether to reach out or stay silent. Meanwhile, avoidants are reading something completely different. They're not counting how many days passed between messages. They're not evaluating your words for hidden meanings. They're sensing something underneath all of that, an energy, a presence, a way you hold yourself emotionally that either feels safe or threatening to them. This feeling has a name, but understanding what it actually means matters more than the label itself. It's called self-containment, not independence, not detachment, not moving on. Self-containment means being emotionally complete within yourself while staying open to connection. It's the opposite of need, but it's also the opposite of closure. When an avoidant senses real self-containment in someone, their whole threat response calms down. The pressure they usually feel around closeness disappears because you're not requiring anything from them to feel whole. The difference shows up right away in how someone carries emotional weight. People without self-containment spread their emotional state onto others. Their anxiety becomes someone else's job to fix. Their uncertainty becomes someone else's problem to solve. Their need for reassurance becomes someone else's burden to carry. Avoidants pick up on this instantly, and it triggers their withdrawal pattern without them even thinking about it. Not because they're cold or don't care, but because their system reads emotional dependency as danger. Self-containment works differently. Someone with real self-containment processes their emotions on their own. They feel disappointment without making it your problem. They experience uncertainty without demanding you fix it. They want connection, but don't need it to function. This creates a totally different dynamic that avoidants find extremely rare. Most people they meet are either chasing them for reassurance or punishing them for pulling away. Self-containment does neither. The practical side starts with how you handle their absence. When an avoidant pulls away, most people try to close the gap by reaching out more. Messages get longer. Explanations get more detailed. Emotions get more visible. This approach guarantees they'll stay away because it proves you need them to keep your emotions stable. Every message searching for reassurance confirms their fear that getting close means drowning in someone else's needs. Self-containment shows up as complete emotional stability when they're gone. Not fake stability where you're secretly falling apart, but acting fine. Real internal balance where their distance doesn't shake your sense of self. You keep doing your normal routines. You maintain your emotional baseline. You feel disappointed, but it passes like any other feeling instead of becoming a crisis. When avoidants check in after being distant for a while, they're watching exactly this. They want to know if their absence created chaos in you or if you stayed basically okay. How you answer that unspoken question determines everything. If their absence created panic, pursuit, or emotional breakdown, they stay away. If their absence barely disrupted your internal stability, they start thinking twice about keeping distance. This isn't about playing games or faking like you don't care. It's about real self-containment, where your emotional balance doesn't depend on them being there or validating you. Most people get self-containment wrong and think it means being cold or uninterested. They think acting unbothered means pulling back your warmth or building walls. This completely misses the point. Self-containment includes warmth, care, and openness. It just doesn't include need. You can be genuinely happy to hear from someone while also being genuinely fine without hearing from them. You can care deeply about connection while not needing it to feel stable. This combination confuses people who think caring equals needing, but avoidants get it right away because it matches how they naturally work. The transformation happens when an avoidant meets someone who shows this quality consistently. At first, they test it. They create distance to see if you'll panic. They reduce communication to see if you'll flood them with messages. They stay silent to see if you'll take their absence as rejection and either chase or punish them. These aren't planned tests. Their system runs these patterns on autopilot to check for safety. When you respond with consistent self-containment through all these tests, something shifts in how they see you. The shift appears in small changes first. They respond faster to messages. They reach out more often on their own. They share more personal stuff. They suggest plans instead of just agreeing to yours. These behavior changes happen because their threat response is calming down. The usual pressure they feel around getting close isn't there with you because you're not creating it. Your emotional stability removes the invisible weight they typically feel in close relationships. Understanding what self-containment actually takes matters here. It's not a show or a strategy. You can't fake real emotional independence because avoidants are extremely good at reading inauthenticity. They've spent their whole lives reading tiny emotional signals to avoid getting trapped in overwhelming situations. If you're performing stability while internally freaking out, they sense the mismatch right away. The performance becomes just another form of manipulation they need to escape from. Real self-containment grows through internal work that has nothing to do with the avoidant. It means building a life so fulfilling that another person adds to it instead of completing it. It means processing your own emotions instead of making them someone else's job. It means finding validation inside yourself instead of needing it from outside sources. This work takes time and often means facing why you've been looking for wholeness through other people instead of building it within yourself. The paradox confuses most people. How can you care about someone while genuinely not needing them? How can you want connection while being completely fine without it? The answer is that need and care are different things. Need comes from feeling incomplete. Care comes from appreciation. When you need someone, their absence creates a hole that throws you off balance. When you care about someone without needing them, their absence is disappointing but doesn't throw you off balance. Avoidants can feel the difference between these two states right away. This difference shows up in how people communicate. Someone working from need uses communication to manage their anxiety. They text to confirm the other person still cares. They call to reassure themselves the connection is still intact. They reach out to fill an internal void. Every interaction carries a hidden request for reassurance. Avoidants pick up on this undercurrent even when the actual words seem casual or neutral. Self-contained communication has no hidden agenda. You reach out because you genuinely want to share something, not because you need proof they still care. You respond when you have something to say, not to keep up a communication rhythm that shows your investment. You can go days without contact without feeling anxious because your sense of connection doesn't depend on constant validation. This type of communication feels completely different to an avoidant because there's no pressure underneath it. The mistake people make is thinking self-containment means pulling back or playing hard to get. They think emotional independence means creating fake distance or holding back warmth. This backfires because avoidants aren't responding to distance itself. They're responding to the absence of emotional pressure. Creating fake distance while still emotionally obsessing over them doesn't reduce pressure. It just adds game playing to the existing neediness, which makes things worse. Real self-containment includes complete openness. You're emotionally available when they reach out. You respond with warmth and presence when they start contact. You show care and interest when they share vulnerable stuff. The difference is that none of this comes from need. You're engaging because you enjoy the connection, not because you need it to feel okay. This openness without need creates the exact conditions that let avoidants lower their defenses. The timeline changes dramatically based on how deeply the avoidant has pulled back and how consistent your self-containment stays. Some avoidants test the waters within days once they sense this shift. Others take months of watching from a distance before they feel safe enough to try again. Trying to control or speed up this timeline immediately destroys the self-containment you're trying to show because it reveals you're still working from need. Waiting without agenda is one of the hardest parts. Most people can keep up self-containment for a short time, but eventually their patience runs out and need comes back. They send a message probing for clarity. They create an ultimatum to force a decision. They pull back their openness as punishment for the long absence. All of these reactions tell the avoidant that the self-containment was temporary and conditional, which confirms their original assessment that getting close to this person isn't safe. Real self-containment has no end date because it doesn't depend on the other person's response. You're building a genuinely fulfilling life whether they return or not. You're processing your emotions whether they reach out or not. You're keeping your stability whether they stay distant for days, weeks, or months. This consistency is what eventually lets an avoidant trust that reconnecting won't trap them in someone else's emotional chaos. The behavior signs that show an avoidant is thinking about returning show up in small ways. They start watching your social media more often. They respond to stories or posts when they used to ignore them. They ask mutual friends about you. They start brief, casual contact to test how you respond. Each of these behaviors is a check. They're seeing whether your self-containment was real or whether you were just waiting for a chance to flood them with need again. How you respond to these small reconnection attempts decides whether they move forward or back away. If their brief message triggers a long emotional response, they disappear again. If their casual contact makes you immediately try to intensify the connection, they pull back. If their simple question makes you read hidden meanings and respond with relationship analysis, they withdraw. The self-contained response matches their energy. Brief contact gets brief warmth. Casual questions get casual answers. Small engagement gets small reciprocation. This matching isn't a strategy. It's natural when you're genuinely self-contained because you're not putting huge meaning on every small interaction. A message is just a message, not proof they've decided to return or evidence they're ready for relationship repair. This view lets you respond authentically without loading the interaction with hopes, expectations, or needs. That lightness is exactly what lets avoidants keep engaging without feeling trapped. The full return happens slowly. Avoidants don't flip a switch and suddenly become fully available. They inch closer in small steps, constantly watching whether each step forward triggers pressure from you. If you stay consistently self-contained through this slow approach, they keep moving closer. If your patience breaks and you try to speed up their pace, they go back to the last comfortable distance and might not try moving forward again. This process means accepting uncertainty without needing to fix it. You don't know if they'll fully return. You don't know if the slow approach will continue or stop. You don't know if their renewed contact means they're rethinking the relationship or just testing whether you're still a safe person to talk to casually. Living in this uncertainty without demanding clarity is proof of real self-containment. Avoidants are watching specifically for whether you can handle not knowing without making your discomfort their responsibility. The deeper question is whether this level of self-containment is sustainable in an actual relationship with an avoidant. The answer depends entirely on whether you're developing self-containment as a trick to get them back or as a real life skill that improves your well-being whether they're involved or not. If it's tactical, you'll eventually resent the emotional independence required because it feels like holding back your needs. If it's genuine, the relationship becomes easier because you're no longer depending on them to meet needs they can't fill. Many people discover through this process that they don't actually want a relationship with someone who needs this level of emotional independence from their partner. That realization is valuable. Self-containment shouldn't mean never expressing needs or always managing emotions alone. Healthy relationships include interdependence, vulnerability, and mutual support. If developing self-containment feels like losing yourself or constantly holding back legitimate needs, the relationship may not be right whether the avoidant returns or not. The alternative is recognizing that self-containment improves your life independent of this specific relationship. Being emotionally stable within yourself makes every relationship better. Processing your emotions on your own instead of dumping them on others creates healthier dynamics across all connections. Building a fulfilling life that another person adds to instead of completes gives you strength through all circumstances. If the avoidant returns, you're better equipped for a healthy relationship. If they don't, you're still way better off than when you started. The practical steps start today. Stop all contact that comes from need instead of genuine desire to share. If you're reaching out to check if they still care, don't send that message. If you're starting contact to manage your anxiety, skip that interaction. If you're communicating to prove you exist or to remind them you're waiting, resist that urge. Every contact driven by need strengthens their view that you lack self-containment. At the same time, build genuine fulfillment in areas that have nothing to do with them. Invest in friendships that give you energy. Go after projects that grab your attention. Develop skills that challenge you. Create experiences that matter to you. Fill your life so completely that their presence becomes a possible addition instead of a required piece. This isn't distraction or staying busy to avoid feelings. It's building actual contentment that makes their absence matter less. Process emotions as they come up without making them someone else's responsibility. Feel disappointment fully instead of pushing it down, but work through it on your own or with a therapist instead of putting it on them. Experience uncertainty without needing them to eliminate it. Sit with the discomfort of not knowing without demanding they provide clarity. This emotional self-sufficiency is the core of self-containment and the quality that makes avoidants rethink distance. The transformation takes time because you're not just changing behavior, you're rebuilding your entire relationship to yourself and others. You're shifting from looking for wholeness outside yourself to building it inside. You're moving from emotional dependency to emotional autonomy. You're developing the ability to want connection without needing it. These changes fundamentally alter how you show up in all relationships, not just with avoidance. When an avoidant finally senses this transformation, their return isn't guaranteed, but becomes possible. They're no longer running from emotional pressure because you're no longer creating it. They're no longer escaping neediness because you're no longer working from need. They're no longer avoiding closeness because closeness with you doesn't threaten their autonomy. The space between you shifts from threatening to safe, and that shift is what lets them move closer instead of keeping distance. Some avoidants still won't return even when they sense real self-containment. They may have moved on completely. They may be dealing with their own issues that prevent reconnection no matter what your state is. They may simply not want the relationship anymore for reasons unrelated to attachment patterns. Self-containment improves your chances a lot, but it doesn't guarantee any specific outcome. What it does guarantee is that you'll be fundamentally better off no matter what they choose. The real question isn't whether an avoidant will come back. The real question is whether you're willing to develop genuine self-containment for your own well-being instead of as a strategy to manipulate their return. If you commit to that internal work, authentically, you win either way. If they come back, you're equipped for a healthier dynamic. If they don't, you've built a stronger relationship with yourself that improves every area of your life. That's the feeling avoidants need to sense before they return. Not performance, not strategy, not manipulation. Real self-containment that signals you're safe to be close to because you're emotionally complete within yourself. When they feel that quality in you consistently, the distance they usually keep starts feeling unnecessary instead of protective. And that shift from necessary distance to unnecessary distance is what creates the possibility of their return. If this resonates with your experience, share in the comments what your biggest challenge is in developing genuine self-containment. Are you struggling to distinguish between care and need? Finding it hard to sit with uncertainty? Having trouble building fulfillment independent of this relationship? Your insights help others navigating similar patterns. If you found this valuable, like this video, and subscribe for more content on attachment patterns and relationship dynamics. Thanks for watching.